Coming up, revelations from King Arthur's Hall, family connections through a rusty dog tag, and is this Britain's oldest spade? Welcome to Time Team News, your monthly look at archaeological news and discoveries from Britain and across the globe. Now, if you enjoy this show, please do subscribe to make sure that you catch every episode. Now, we've got lots coming up, including the discovery of statues in Cambodia and details of a very special festive live event. But first, a big story to hit the headlines from the heart of Cornwall. Bodmin Moor is steeped in legend, from smugglers' tales at the Jamaica Inn through to associations with King Arthur. But as modern archaeology often highlights, the truth can be more fascinating and ancient than the myth. A mysterious rectangular monument on the moor has long been romanticised as King Arthur's Hall, no doubt fuelled by other local sites connected with Arthurian legend, from Tintagel Castle to Dosmary Pool. But while Arthur's tales are set at the turn of the 6th century AD, new research has now confirmed the monument's origins are actually thousands of years older, stemming from the Neolithic, around 5,000 years ago. And I'm pleased to have one of the researchers, an old Time Team friend, James Gossett from Cornwall Archaeological Unit, here with me now. Hi James, thanks for joining us.
Hi Danny, good to see you again.
James, you've had a very exciting few weeks with some big news.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, I'm getting the dating results back from King Arthur's Hall has been very exciting, and everyone seems fascinated by the results. So it's really good.
So tell us a bit more about this monument.
Well, King Arthur's Hall is effectively a rectangular bank of earth, although now we put a slice through it. You know, it's got a stony core as well. It's about 50 metres long internally, about 20 metres wide, and it has banks up to 11 metres wide. And the inside of that bank is lined with upright stones, orthostats, big pieces of granite. And today there's 56 surviving. Many of them are leaning or have collapsed onto the floor. But some recording done by John Norden back in the 16th century suggests that it might have been a continuous line of stones around the whole interior at one point, maybe up to 140 or 150 of them.
And how did the project come about?
Well, really, it was a conversation between a local group on Bodmin Moor called Time Seekers, and they spoke to someone at Historic England and someone at Cornwall National Landscape because they were spearheading this project called Monumental Improvement, looking at scheduled monuments across Bodmin Moor with funding from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. They always had a sense that it was a much older monument. And we thought, well, let's see whether we can put a scientific dating project together and find out exactly how old it is and whether it does belong to the prehistoric period or later on.
Excavations were carried out in 2022. The team included Time Team's own 3D reconstruction whiz Matt Bear Clark, who has produced a range of photogrammetry models of the trenches. And you used a relatively new dating technique, optically stimulated luminescence, to date the monument. But did it surprise you to get such an early date?
It did to an extent. Well, I mean, it was. I suppose I'd have been happy with any date. It was just really our objective to find out when it had been constructed. But this team from St Andrews University and Newcastle University, when they came back with these dates for these buried soils, buried under the banks of the monument, proving that it had been built around about 3000 BC. That was a surprise, and just really, made it an even more enigmatic monument because we don't really know what it was built for.
That's an interesting point, because we don't tend to think of rectangular examples from that age. We often think of stone circles in the Neolithic. Various ideas have been put forward about the origins of the monument, including a medieval castle enclosure. Do we have any idea of its original function?
Not really, except that it fits into a time period when we suspect the prehistoric tor enclosures of the earlier Neolithic period are still probably in use in a landscape where there's extensive grazing, and then they're sat in the middle of the moor on a north-south alignment, looking directly what would have been the pole star at the time. Perhaps lends one to think it might have been some sort of ceremonial space or a place of the coming together of communities who would have also used these tor enclosures for similar sorts of activities, maybe for exchange of goods or ideas, maybe for rituals at certain times of the year, perhaps for the meeting of different communities coming together. We'll never really be completely sure, but maybe there'll be a bit more work there at some point, which will help guide us towards a use for the monument.
Thanks, James. That's great. Please do keep us informed of any developments.
It's a pleasure. Always great to talk about King Arthur's Hall.
A fascinating new chapter for an ancient monument. But what do you think its original function was? Let us know in the comments. And we'll be sharing more insights from James over on Patreon. To find out more about Bob Minmore's prehistoric archaeology, check out the Time Team episode In the Shadow of the Tor from Series 14. And you can also catch an in-depth interview with environmental archaeologist Dr. Ben Geary. Links below. News just in. English Heritage have announced the discovery of a knife handle near Hadrian's Wall, depicting a Roman gladiator, complete with helmet, sword and shield. The knife handle, found in a river at Corbridge Roman town, Northumberland, has been cast in copper alloy and represents a type of gladiator known as a secutor. At the time of its construction, Hadrian's Wall marked the northernmost border of the Roman Empire. While gladiators are symbolic of ancient Rome, this is just one of a few depictions of the sport discovered in the UK. Dr. Francis McIntosh of English Heritage says, "It's rare to find a piece of gladiator memorabilia in Britain, and to find such a well-preserved and interesting piece is particularly remarkable." As Francis notes, gladiators were the celebrities of their day. She says, "This beautifully made knife handle is testament to how pervasive this celebrity culture was, reaching all the way to Hadrian's Wall at the very edge of the Roman Empire." The knife is to go on display at Corbridge Roman town in 2025. And some modern archaeology for you now, demonstrating how a found object can connect across generations. Operation Nightingale's return to Oldbourne in Wiltshire for Digging Band of Brothers 2024 culminated in the discovery of a dog tag, the third now found on site to have belonged to an American paratrooper from World War II. The dog tag, traced to Otto May of Fox Company, was found folded up and possibly discarded between the floorboards of one of the Nissen huts. Giselle Corrali of Operation Nightingale did some further research and unearthed an even greater find: Otto's grandchildren, Brian and Greg May. And it turned out they'd been doing some research of their own.
Brian and I we're certainly not historians, we didn't study it in school or anything, but from a very young age, we've taken interest and, would ask our grandfather questions, and then, have read every book we could get our hands on, have researched every part of Fox Company, of all of the 101st. And so it's almost, it's a cool match, because it just so happens, we've read every damn book and found every article we could dig up and every picture.
This is right when Band of Brothers just came out, the book. That Christmas, when my grandparents came over, I said, "Grandpa, look at this." Gave him the book. And I said, I hear it's a really good book. He starts flipping through. He's like, "Oh, Colonel Sink." And then a couple other names which didn't mean anything to me at the time. And I said to him, "I hear it's a really good book." And he's like, "Yep, he's like, it's going to be a good book. I was there."
Otto was one of the original recruits from Camp Takoa. He jumped on D-Day and was injured from artillery fire while positioned in a foxhole during the siege of Bastogne. Amazingly, Greg and Brian had a few items of Otto's of their own to share.
I've got a pair of skivvies. I've got a T-shirt. This is like and I've got the necktie that goes with this. But this is the. Can you see it?
Oh my God! No way.
So this is like the dress shirt that they wore around, like when you see them in Band of Brothers in Aldbourne. And this patch. So you've got the Screaming Eagle, and I guess the Sergeant or Corporal bars. I'm not even sure which.
Sergeant's bars there. Yeah.
Here's like the overcoat, which basically has the same stuff. It's got the bars, the Screaming Eagle.
It's a heartwarming story showing how archaeology can have such an immediate resonance for the living.
The past year, I've been a little frustrated because I kind of hit my research wall. So it was I felt like I was there's nothing else I can do. They're not writing new books, all those guys are moving on, So getting the Facebook message, it was almost like, holy cow, it's opening up a new, now we can start researching more and start trying to learn more and piece together more, so.
And as a direct result of the dog tag's discovery, Richard has vowed to return to the site for further investigation.
It changes my decisions about where we're going to dig, because there weren't going to be any more huts being dug, but we now have to, because there could be another tag potentially. And we talk about archaeology, each object has a narrative and a story about it, and they do, but the embedded story in that dog tag is just something else. It's amazing.
We shared that full interview with Patreon members, and due to the overwhelming response, we've now unlocked that post, making it available to the wider public for free. So head over to Patreon right now to watch that extended interview, where you'll also find a whole host of additional content, including Q&As, masterclasses and Dig Watch coverage. So this month's Book of the Month is A Brief History of the Countryside in 100 Objects by author Sally Coulthard, and I'm joined by Sally today. Hi Sally, how are you doing?
Hi Danny, I'm really well. Nice to be here.
Nice to meet you too. Now, this book looks absolutely fascinating. It's right up my street, this. History of the Countryside in 100 Objects. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Absolutely. So it's called A Brief History of the Countryside in 100 Objects. Really, it covers a huge archaeological span from about 12,000 years ago right through to modern day. And it's talking about our rural past in Britain and why the landscape is as it is. I wanted to talk about rural archaeology and rural history because for me, it seems like a landscape that's really ignored in terms of written histories. I live on a farm in the sort of depths of North Yorkshire, and I see every day the remnants of lives that have been lived here, whether it's bits of farming equipment, whether it's changes to the landscape, whether it's structures of a village, all these kind of things, these sort of material remains are all around me. And I wanted to write a book that wasn't going to be about maypoles and ploughs. The history of the countryside is much more interesting than that. So I talk about crime, I talk about child labour, superstition, sacrifice, I talk about all the animals that we have in the countryside and our relationship with them, why churches are where they are, why villages are set out as they are. I've tried to pretty much cover the whole gamut of the sort of human experience.
Do you want to talk a bit more about the layout?
So the book is divided into 100 objects, obviously. The clue is in the title, but my idea about the book was that I wanted it to be 100 kind of almost distinct little essays. But I also wanted it to be a book that was not only accessible and really easy to read, but also kind of took a really detailed historical and archaeological journey. So it does start at the beginning and ends in modern day. And through that, each object does link into the next, because I found that almost like, like a really good kitchen sink drama, I wanted people to kind of finish one object and then go, ooh, what's next?
I think what's great about this book, I know you were just saying that it's linear, starting from early prehistory going through, but actually you can dip in and out of it because each object has its own mini chapter. So if you've only got 5 minutes, you can just have a quick read through.
It can sit in your downstairs toilet if you want to and dip into it whenever you get bored, but it does I personally think it's worth sitting down and reading all the way through because it's actually a rip-roaring journey.
Sally, it's amazing the amount of objects in here and the breadth of research that you must have done as well. It's truly a wonderful book.
Thank you so much for letting me talk about the book. And I really hope that people find it as interesting to read as I found it to write. And honestly, who knew that the history of the countryside would be so full of drama and excitement?
This is definitely on my Christmas present list. Just to say thank you for joining us on Time Team News, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again soon.
You're very welcome, Danny. Nice to speak to you.
You too. Thank you. And A Brief History of the Countryside in 100 Objects by Sally Coulthard is available now, and the publishers are Harper North. Now for one of my favourite finds of the year. For many field archaeologists, their most treasured possession is their trusty spade. So imagine the delight when archaeologists recently discovered what might just be one of the oldest wooden spades in Britain. This remarkable artefact is thousands of years old, likely dating from the Middle Bronze Age. The discovery was made at Arne near Poole Harbour in Dorset during evaluations ahead of the Moors at Arne project, which is transforming the area into a designated wetland. Thankfully, the cameras were on hand to capture it all.
The call about the wooden spade, it made me sit back in my chair and go, wow, that's amazing. I also felt a bit jealous actually, because I wish I'd been on site that day when they found it.
The excavation has been carried out by Wessex Archaeology, with the project delivered by Kier on behalf of the Environment Agency and its project partners RSPB and Natural England.
What have you found? Waterlogged timber.
First I wasn't 100% sure what I was looking at, because I was just taking out a second fill in the ring ditch that we were excavating at the time. And then I came across some wood and I stopped, thought for a moment, what's this? And together we uncovered what turned out to be a wooden spade.
That's pretty decent, didn't expect that.
The waterlogged conditions perfectly preserved this tool, which was fashioned from a single piece of wood.
I was quite nervous, but luckily I did have some amazing colleagues with me to help me move the spade onto the board we used as a transportation.
Success!
Because it's wood, it's very vulnerable, so as soon as it's exposed to oxygen, it will start to decay. So it's been taken back to Wessex Archaeology's offices, and it's going to be conserved and consolidated. But we're also going to investigate it, we're going to analyse it to try and find out what wood it's made from, and most importantly, what date it is.
So this is the wooden spade from Arne Moor. When it first came in, Erica and I were cleaning it, just using soft sponges and tap water just to remove most of the surface soil, and using bamboo skewers where the surface soil was a bit tougher. When we're working on an artifact like this, we have to make sure that it doesn't dry out, because drying out will cause it to shrink and the wood will warp and change shape, and you might lose important information like tool marks and things like that.
There are some wood species which are relatively easy to identify just by eye, or maybe with a magnifying lens. But the normal procedure for identifying waterlogged wood, such as this from any archaeological site, involves taking very, very thin sections through the wood and using the light on a microscope to shine a bright light through it, and then that will illuminate the wood anatomy. So we know it's made from a mature piece of oak, most likely from the heartwood, which is the dense wood from near the centre of the tree. We know this because there are balloon-like deposits which we can see in the wood anatomy. And these little balloon-like deposits are only formed in very mature oak trees. So the first radiocarbon date we've obtained, it calibrates to the Middle Bronze Age, so roughly between 1500 BC to 1400 BC. It's probably going to be a unique experience in my working career to work on something like this. And I really look forward to seeing what the post-excavation process unravels.
It's the sort of thing that as an archaeologist you very rarely find in your working career. So it's something that they'll remember and I'll remember for a long, long time.
World news now. 1,000-year-old statues have been discovered in a palace in Cambodia. The Grand Royal Palace at Angkor Thom was once home to the powerful Khmer Empire that ruled over huge swathes of land across Southeast Asia from the 9th to the 15th centuries AD. At its height, Angkor was a huge, bustling city, one of the largest of its time, serviced by an advanced irrigation system. Today, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Whilst excavating at the North Gate, archaeologists discovered 12 beautifully carved sandstone statues known as door guardians, many of them almost intact. The beautifully detailed carvings are thought to date from the 11th century, based on stylistic features consistent with the palace. The sophistication of stone masonry, which is said to exemplify the Kniang style, speaks to the high status of the complex. The discovery was announced by the APSARA National Authority and the China-Cambodia government team for safeguarding Angkor. We've put the link in the box below. Time Team have just released our Black Friday special offer. For a limited time, you can enjoy a 16% discount on annual membership. That's the equivalent of 2 months free. We've got details of that in the description box below. And with Christmas only weeks away now, we're planning a very special festive live session in December featuring members of the team. Patreon members will get to join us live as the team reflect on the year that was, look ahead to 2025 and put their questions to the team live. Full details are to be announced shortly, so please keep a lookout. Well, that's all for this month. Please do remember that this is your programme and we'll cover the stories that you'd like to hear about. So what would you like us to cover next? Let us know in the comments. Additional content from Time Team News can be found over on Patreon, including 3D models and extended interviews. And do remember to subscribe and press that notification bell to receive all the latest updates. Well, that's all from me for now. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Join Time Team on Patreon to access exclusive 3D models, masterclasses, and behind-the-scenes insights.